He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place show, not overly ostentatious studios of 365 Sports here in beautiful New York City. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. You could always get at me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Or you can find me on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. If you are watching us live now on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube page right here on 365 Sports. If you're consuming us after the show, youtube.com/@365SportsYT, youtube.com/@365SportsYT. Subscribe. Sam Brookhouse is at the Combine in Indianapolis. He's going to join us around 2:40 p.m. Eastern Time. Will Bowling, who is the Tennessee Titans sideline reporter, he's going to join us at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I believe Will is also in Indianapolis for the Combine, but we'll continue our NFL offseason coverage as we go from team to team. We started with the first pick in the draft with the Raiders. We went to the second pick in the draft with the New York Jets, the third pick with the Arizona Cardinals. Today we'll continue that series with the Tennessee Titans in at number 4. We will take a look at their new head football coach in Robert Saleh, their new head offensive coordinator in Brian Daboll, what they will be doing with the fourth pick in the draft, and maybe some other news and notes around the Tennessee Titans with their now second-year quarterback in Cam Ward coming off his rookie season. So a lot to delve into there. All righty, let's start with the Combine. You have a bunch of teams, general managers, and also head coaches speaking today as the NFL world is in Indianapolis, where the NFL world is really the oyster down there for the Combine. We'll start things off with a clip. A big topic of conversation is about the future of one Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to come back for another season? I think he is. Then where is he going to play? Clearly, there could be a reunion with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sure, when Mike Tomlin was I was going to say let go. When he resigned, let's use the proper terms, even though I think it was the right decision to get Tomlin out. But he ended up walking away instead of the Steelers being forced to say goodbye to Mike Tomlin, something I don't think they would have had the cojones to do, even though it was time for a reset. When Tomlin wasn't coming back, the immediate take, and a lot of people had the opinion in the aftermath of that news, well, you have a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. If he was going to come back, it'd only be for Mike T. Now Mike Tomlin no longer being there, probably Rodgers isn't going to come on back. But then the Steelers going out and hire Mike McCarthy. And even though McCarthy and Rodgers had a icy, frosty relationship at the end, and it wasn't pretty in the end and Green Bay, they did share a lot of time together where they did win a Super Bowl together. It's the only Super Bowl that Mike McCarthy has won as a head coach. It's the only Super Bowl that Aaron Rodgers has won as a quarterback. And it seems that relationship with time away from one another, that the wound is healed where McCarthy realizes, okay, I could use Rodgers. Rodgers realizes there's not many teams that are come calling for me. So I do believe that a reunion is plausible. I do think a reunion is likely, but the way that Aaron Rodgers operates, it's truly by the beat of his drum. How long is it going to take him to make a decision? We know Rodgers is never afraid to pretend like he is not about drama, but we know that he loves the drama. Would he maybe go on out and hit up the Vikings again? Because he didn't want to go to Pittsburgh last year. He wanted to be a member of the Minnesota Vikings. He was basically waiting outside of Kevin O'Connell's house with a boombox, begging him, imploring him to have him sign with Minnesota for whatever the reasons were. The Vikings didn't sign him. Now you fast forward a year later. Rodgers had a good season, a solid season. Let's not get crazy. Let's not get nuts. He did what you anticipated him to do and what you expected him to do in Pittsburgh. And you look at the Vikings, Daniel Jones no longer in that building. Sam Darnold no longer in that building. Sam Darnold goes on, leaves Minnesota, wins a Super Bowl. Daniel Jones leaves Minnesota, goes to Indianapolis, wins that job outright. For the first half of the season, he was looking like he was either going to win the Comeback Player of the Year award or the MVP of the league. Then he suffers an injury. And now you look at the Vikings, where what did they have after losing Sam Darnold, after losing Daniel Jones? You have J.J. McCarthy, who didn't really give you much this year, whether it's because he wasn't good or he was hurt. And now these are 2 years having J.J. McCarthy in your organization. The first year he missed entirely because of injury. And this year he missed many games because of different injuries as well. So if Rodgers, with no Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah there anymore, if Rodgers goes to Kevin O'Connell and says, KOC, get me to your team, could there be a Brett Favre path for Aaron Rodgers? Yes, and he could be the Vikings quarterback, but I do believe most people will operate under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers if he wants to play football this year. Here was the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Omar Khan, in Indianapolis, talking about the future of his quarterback in Aaron Rodgers.
So, nothing new to add. I've been in communication with Aaron. I think Mike has. I know Mike has also. We've got good communication, honest communication, but nothing new to report there. So, happy to take any questions.
Do you have a deadline?
No deadline. All I'll tell you guys is I don't foresee this going like it did last year. So,
Is it important to have?
So they don't see it going like it did last year. That means they don't want the drama. But the Steelers really have no power. Could they maybe go in a different direction? Yeah. They could go out and they could go sign Kirk Cousins if they want to, but Kirk has to become a free agent first. Kirk is still currently under contract with the Falcons. Can that change? Will that probably change? Sure. If Tua gets released, are you really clamoring to bring in Tua Tagovailoa? I wouldn't be. Tua can't play in the cold. You're in Pittsburgh. Kyler Murray, if you want to kick the tires there, I could live with that if I'm a fan of the Steelers, but it's not as if the Steelers really have that much leverage. I don't think they're giving a big deal out to Malik Willis. All the other quarterbacks are kind of underwhelming. So if you want Aaron Rodgers back, you may be held hostage to the timeline of Aaron Rodgers unless if you pivot. And if you pivot, who are you pivoting to? Kirk Cousins? Okay. I don't think they're going to go get a deal done with Malik Willis. I don't think they think that highly of Will Howard, who's entering year 2 in that roster. So there's not a name that Aaron probably will feel intimidated by, but that end answer by Omar Khan, I don't expect it to go the way that it did last year. Well, what ammunition do you have to maybe force Aaron Rodgers to operate on your terms and not his terms? And the reality is not much. Yes, Aaron could go play a song and dance with the Vikings. And if the Steelers go on out and they somehow Kirk Cousins becomes available, which is likely, and they sign Kirk Cousins, then yes, Aaron, you may be SOL. But would I rather have Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins? I'd still rather have Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know how much leverage, and I don't think the Steelers have that much leverage here if they're trying to avoid the drama of a year ago. And I guess Mike McCarthy, and it's not like Rodgers had a disrespect for Mike Tomlin. If anything, he respected him maybe as much as any coach in this league and probably has more respect for Tomlin than he does McCarthy. But can Rodgers respect McCarthy? Can maybe McCarthy, with that relationship in the past, can it help make this process smoother? Yeah, but I'm not going to sit here and just blindly state because Omar Khan believes that this is not going to be, and they don't anticipate it like the way that it was last year. That means either two things. One, he's just talking, or two, maybe Aaron has said behind the scenes, this is the deadline. This is what I'm going to do. I'll let you know a few weeks from now. So that's the Steelers front. I would say if Aaron's playing football next year, it will either be for the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Minnesota Vikings. Now, let's get to A.J. Brown with the Eagles. let's start it off with our buddy Anthony Gargano on PHLY. They had Brian Baldinger on. Baldy and Gargano have been talking for years on the same show, just on different outlets. This is what Brian Baldinger had to say about A.J. Brown, because there's been a lot of smoke with A.J. Brown the last 3 or 4 years. Sure, the Eagles have been to 2 Super Bowls with him. Sure, they've won a Super Bowl with him. But there's a lot of unhappiness, it feels like, with A.J. Brown, or signs of frustration from A.J. Brown. And a lot of people are wondering if this past season was A.J. Brown's final one in Philadelphia. This is Brian Baldinger.
Divorce. It just does, cuz. Like, I mean, from the day that we saw him reading a book on the bench, like, it just felt like that was all you needed. Like, this thing is not working out. And it's not about who's calling plays and it's just, sometimes it's, and I'm not saying this about AJ in a negative way, but sometimes it's addition by subtraction. It just is. You got a new guy in there, a young guy. You've got Devontae, he's a world-class player. You've got Jahan, you got guys. But, we know AJ is still a top-flight player. But maybe he just needs to go someplace else. I feel like that. Now, and that's not with knowing anything. I'm not over at NovaCare talking to these people. I hear things like you hear things, like we all hear things. But, I'm not digging to try to find stuff out because I don't really care. But I do feel like that is going to be inevitable. They went to back-to-back Super Bowls with them. They won a Super Bowl with them. They've had a great run. And in addition to having, Saquon, a world-class offensive line, a proven leader at quarterback, an organization knows how to build, all those things have to take place too. But I feel like you can get receivers. This is a great draft for receivers. You go through the list of them, there's 3 in the top 10 right now.
Tyson, the kid Tyson I like Tyson a lot.
Jordan Tyson, Arizona State, Mekhi Lamb, USC, the kid from Ohio State, Tate, you can find.
So that's Baldy and Anthony Gargano talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles made the playoffs this year. So those wide receivers, I don't think Jordan Tyson, I don't think Lemon, I don't believe Cardinal Tate are going to be made available when the Eagles are picking at 23. Right now, Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, they have him drafting a tight end, Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. So is it possible if these receivers maybe fall to 12 or 13 that the Eagles can move up from 23 to go get a wide receiver? Yes. And then you trade A.J. Brown. And in theory, if you're trading A.J. Brown, bare minimum, you'll get a second-round pick. There's a chance that you could get a first-round pick. So if you have to give up a future first-round pick to go get a receiver to replace A.J. Brown, you could use that future first-round pick either being one of yours for the 2027 draft class, or you could use the one that you're probably getting back for A.J. Brown in either 2026 if this deal is done before the draft, or in the one that you would get back in 2027. And this is the part, and I'm glad Baldy brought it up. You go, oh, it's not the play caller. Yeah, Patullo wasn't a good play caller. But there has been multiple play callers in Philadelphia, and A.J. Brown just hasn't been happy. And I've seen this firsthand. I was at the playoff game covering the game when he wasn't thrilled when they were beating the Giants. I was there for whatever the playoff game was that he had the book Inner Excellence on the sideline as they were winning a playoff game, and he's reading a book on the sideline. And I know that he's done that in the past, but that's just absurd. And I had to walk into that locker room and ask the question, are you unhappy? Are you frustrated? And he was shocked that I asked that question. Are you frustrated? He's like, I knew people would spin it that way. I don't get why. Oh, you're reading a damn book on the sideline during a playoff game. So can both things be true? Yes. Can A.J. Brown be frustrated with the play calling? Yes, but just bringing in a new play caller like Sean Mannion, does anyone think that this means A.J. Brown won't be a problem next year? And at one point won't make it about A.J. Brown? You'd be stupid to believe that. Let's call it what it is. A.J. Brown has been through multiple play callers. A.J. Brown has had a lot of good moments for the Eagles, has been to 2 Super Bowls, has won a Super Bowl. In all that time, whether he's been right or wrong, A.J. Brown has been frustrated and appearing like he's not happy in Philadelphia. You can't, if you're the Eagles, enter this offseason rolling the dice on A.J. Brown and just assuming that he's going to be all fine. Like, there's too much to lose here. You have a team that is capable of getting back to another Super Bowl and winning another Super Bowl. And you got to have all hands on deck. And can this team still be great? Can this team still win a Super Bowl without A.J. Brown? Yes. I'm not saying it's that easy to replace him. Look at the Tennessee Titans. They haven't been able to replace him ever since getting rid of him. And I thought it was a bad move by Tennessee when they got rid of him. But you got Devontae Smith. You could draft a wide receiver in the first round. You got Jalen Hurts. You got Lane Johnson coming back. You got Saquon Barkley. There's a lot there for the Eagles where you have to ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze anymore with A.J. Brown? And the answer, maybe no. And like, yes, A.J. Brown could go to the Patriots, could be their number 1 wide receiver, could get reunited with Mike Vrabel, and it could all be dandy, and he could have a successful season, and so could the Eagles. So I think it makes sense here on both parties for A.J. Brown to get a new home, and then for the Eagles to say goodbye to him as well. And while he's still at a rate where you could get a lot back for A.J. Brown. And I know some people are saying, oh, you're probably only going to get a 2 back for A.J. Brown. You're telling me if Howie Roseman, who's the best wheeler and dealer, is the best GM, the preeminent GM in football, you're telling me if Howie Roseman calls up Brandon Beane and Elliott Wolf, that he can't find a way to pit the Bills up against the Patriots inside the AFC East and find a way to get one of those teams to give up a first-round draft pick for him? Like, go get Josh Allen on the phone. Go get Drake May on the phone. Could you imagine if Elliott Wolf calls up Drake May and says, hey, we could get A.J. Brown? Could you imagine if Brandon Beane calls up Josh Allen and says, hey, we could get A.J. Brown? Those guys would say, yeah, give up a first-round pick for him. Like, the Patriots have the 31st pick in the draft. Who are you getting at 31 in this draft that's going to be better than A.J. Brown? Right now, they're projected to take an outside linebacker, and R. Mason Thomas, who, if memory serves me right, he did have a touchdown in one of the games I was watching this year, because I remember that name scoring a touchdown, R. Mason Thomas. I think it was like an incredible effort play. It may have been up against Alabama. I forget who it was. So is R. Mason Thomas going to help the Patriots more in 2026 than A.J. Brown? No. So I would easily give up that 31st pick. And then the Bills are sitting there, and the Bills are picking at 26. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are projected to get Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. Well, Buffalo, not that long ago, I think it was the first pick in the second round, they used that on Keon Coleman. He's been a disaster. Would you rather have that pick at 26 and you take a flyer and a wide receiver in the first round, or would you rather go on out there and get a proven player like A.J. Brown that is at least going to give you 2 more really productive seasons, probably more than that, and you get Josh Allen, a legitimate number 1, and you get Drake May, a legitimate number 1 as well? So here's the latest on A.J. Brown, though. Nick Sirianni did an interview with ESPN. I believe this was with Tim McManus. This is what Sirianni said, quote, will A.J. be here next season? I think we're still in a spot. I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be the coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow. That's a simple question. If I'm Sirianni, whether I know the truth to that answer or not, and I get asked the question, is A.J. Brown going to be on this team? I'm saying 2 things. 1, I hope so. Or 2, and you could say I hope so, like, hey, that's not my decision. That's Howie Roseman and Jeffrey's decision, but I hope he's on this team. Or 2, you could just say yes. And so what? Even if they trade him, do people think that hurts Nick Sirianni because he said yes? Giving a quote like that only adds more fuel to the fire that the Eagles aren't happy with A.J. Brown, and they're ready to move off of him. And what Nick Sirianni basically just did, even though he's not the GM, where he's like, oh, I can't guarantee anything. I may not even be the coach, like, load of crap. Like, who knows what tomorrow has in store? You could sell it that way. But I read in between all that stuff, and it just says that the Eagles, or at least Nick Sirianni, and he could play dumb when AJ maybe is on the team and like, oh, see, like I couldn't guarantee anything, but he was there. But it seems like he's ready to move off of AJ Brown. And I don't think that's the case. Like, I think the Eagles may be. in terms of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, but I don't know if the coaches. Sirianni goes out of his way time and time again to defend A.J. Brown, and he's truly a player's coach. And at times he could be a doormat. So who knows what the truth is there. But I read that quote. That sounds like Nick Sirianni knows that it's not likely right now that A.J. Brown's going to be on this team come week 1. Now, Elliott Shore-Parks posted the transcript here of Howie Roseman getting asked questions today about A.J. Brown. The first question was, will A.J. be back next season? Howie Roseman. I'd go back to what I said at the end of the season. It's really hard to find great players. I think A.J. is a great player. I think that from my perspective, we're looking to improve in all areas, and you don't do that by subtracting. That's a very fair, down the middle question by Howie where he gives off the presentation without saying, yes, emphatically, AJ is going to be back. But he compliments AJ. He says, AJ is a great player. I think from my perspective, we're looking to improve in all areas, and you don't do that by subtracting. So he's basically giving you the opinion, and he's, at least without directly saying it, saying, I am not trading A.J. Brown. But I read that, and maybe I'm being too critical here, I'll admit that. But when he doesn't, like, he does say, we're looking to improve in all areas, and you don't do that by subtracting. That would imply that AJ's going to be on the team. But he didn't just flat out say it. Like, for example, you're looking to improve all areas of the team, you don't do that by subtracting. Well, what happens if a team calls you up and offers you something ridiculous and you can't say no to it? So that Sirianni, I think, gave you more than probably the Eagles wanted to. I take Howie's calls as, we're going to compliment AJ. We're going to compliment AJ. We like AJ. We love AJ. People in league circles talk, and they know that the Eagles aren't thrilled with A.J. Brown. And that's Howie basically saying, if you want A.J., we like him. We're going to tell you we like him. We're going to tell you how great he is. You better call up and give me more than what I'm hearing so far to maybe trade A.J., because right now it doesn't make sense for us to trade him with what's being offered. And it's important to note it's still very early in the offseason. The new league year hasn't even started yet. We just got to the combine. It's February 24th. So these things can continue to move until the end of April when the NFL draft does happen. Now, Howie was also asked, do you go into the league year listening to offers for him? Now, here's the interesting part. I think you go into the league, you're listening to offers for everything and anything. I don't think that, you can go into any conversation with anyone and just shoot things down without hearing what they have to say, because you never know. You never know with any player, if someone's going to give you something that you didn't anticipate and you won't even have the conversation, I don't think you necessarily are doing your job or really servicing the team that you're with. You never know what someone's willing to do. And certainly we've been in situations where there are guys that we didn't anticipate trading, that we got an offer for that was too good. And then you balance it with what you can get there. So, without getting into specifics on any player, we're always listening and we're always kind of open. There's very few things that I would shoot down without even hearing what that means, because how does it hurt to listen? Exactly what I just said. Howie Roseman is listening to offers for A.J. Brown. Howie Roseman is telling you the offers aren't good enough right now. So Buffalo, New England, whoever it may be, if you want A.J. Brown, you need to offer the Eagles more. Those are the messages that Howie Roseman just sent out there in that answer. And Nick Sirianni kind of did it as well, where he said, I can't guarantee anything. If this was a warm, fuzzy relationship and A.J. Brown, the Eagles still thought he could be a top 10, top 5 wide receiver in this league, which I still think he can be, they would shoot down all these rumors. If A.J. Brown was always a good soldier, if he wasn't reading a book on the sideline during the playoff game, if he wasn't always pouting and not liking the quarterback in Jalen Hurts, if he didn't always have all these issues, and he wasn't a diva wide receiver, and he just showed up, was all about ball and all about winning, and didn't come with all this drama, the Eagles would laugh at you for suggesting trading A.J. Brown. But when this has been an issue now for the last 3-4 seasons, even though it's been in a 3-4 season span, they've gone to 2 Super Bowls and they won one, and AJ's been very productive, they're telling you the juice right now for us may no longer be worth the squeeze. And they're telling you We like this player. We know this player is a great player, but he could be better suited off somewhere else. Our relationship ran its course. However, we're not just selling him like for 75 cents on the dollar. If you want him, get serious about it, Buffalo. Get serious about it, New England. This second-round pick or third-round pick you may offering right now, it's not good enough. You got to call up with the number one. And once again, with the Bills and the Pats both picking late in the first round, what are the odds that either one of those teams are going to get a better player than A.J. Brown in the draft? Not good. Like, Buffalo should easily trade their first-round pick for A.J. Brown. The Patriots should easily trade their first-round pick for A.J. Brown. But who's going to bite first and who's going to get the Eagles to say yes? I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be on the Eagles come week one. All righty, let's move off of A.J. Brown. And we will get to Max Crosby. So the Raiders have been speaking on Max Crosby, and John Spytek, their general manager, he was at the Combine today, and he's basically saying how much they love Max Crosby and how he believes that Max Crosby is going to be on the roster. And the quote that he gave was, and this was the Sirius XM, "We're in the business of trying to have great football players, and Max is a great football player." So you could go through some of those things where it's like, oh, it's very similar to A.J. Brown in terms of the messaging. If I'm the Raiders, I would actually, and I say this with skepticism because I love the player a lot, but if I'm the Raiders, I would trade Max Crosby. And here's why. You're nowhere close to winning. And I understand that teams go from the outhouse to the penthouse very quickly. We've seen teams in recent years be picking in the top 5, be picking in the top 10, and then immediately the next year, they're not only in the playoffs, they're going on a deep run. We saw it with the Patriots. We've seen it with the Texans. There have been the Broncos. You get the right player, especially at the quarterback position, Drake May, Bo Nix, C.J. Stroud, and your misfortunes can change overnight. However, I look at the Raiders and I see them in a division where they're looking up and they have the Chiefs in front of them, they have the Chargers in front of them, and they have the Broncos in front of them. You're the clear fourth team. You're going to have Ashton Genty. You're going to have Brock Bowers. 2 really good weapons. You need to fix that offensive line. You're going to have your quarterback in Max Crosby. If I'm the, Fernando Mendoza, excuse me. But if I'm the Raiders and I have a Max Crosby who it's starting to feel like there's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I understand that Max doesn't want to be the bad guy here. And Max does truly love the Raiders. But doesn't Max eventually want to win? And you look at a Myles Garrett situation. Myles Garrett had a chance to leave. He went about it the right way, and then he walked it all back because the Browns gave him some great contract. Could have got that elsewhere. Could have got to a better football team, and he could have got paid. But you look at Max Crosby, he's a great football player, no question. If I'm Max, I would want out. And if I'm the Raiders and he wants out, and you're bare minimum getting a first-round pick and then some for Max Crosby, maybe you get 2 1s. Maybe you get a 1 and a 2. Maybe you get a 1 and a 2 with the condition on the 2 that could make it a 1. Like, the Raiders should be in the business of acquiring the most amount of players possible. They need a ton of ammunition. And some of it they're going to get right, and some of it they're going to get wrong. That's why they need an enormous amount of ammunition. And Max Crosby provides them ammunition if you elect to trade Max Crosby. Ultimately, though, I feel confident A.J. Brown's going to get traded this offseason. Max, I'm unsure of. Because I do believe with Q Myers, who joined us, that Max doesn't want to be the bad guy here. And even though I think it would behoove the Raiders to trade Max, I don't know how much of an inclination that the Raiders are going to want to trade Max Crosby. I don't know if John Spytek wants to do that. I don't know if Clint Kubiak wants to do that. Where when I hear the Eagles speak, it sounds a little bit different if you listen intently than the way that the Raiders speak. So would I be shocked if Max Crosby got traded this offseason? No, I would not be shocked. Would I be a little bit surprised? Yes, I would, because I say this. A year ago, he could have got out. He elected to sign an extension. Just like how a year ago, Myles Garrett could have got out, and he elected to sign an extension. If you look a year later, if you wanted to stay a year previously, what really changed? There's a new head football coach. You maybe just started to realize that the Raiders aren't going to get this right. Well, have you been paying attention to the team that you've been on for the last half decade plus? So I think this is one of those cases with Max Crosby where it's like Bradley Beal in Washington, where it's like Milwaukee. There's been noise, there's been drama. We talk about it all the time, but the change doesn't happen because Max isn't going to say it himself. Because Max fears that he's going to be the bad guy with the Raiders. Like, what Raiders fan with the sane brain is going to hear Max Crosby say, hey, I love the Raiders, but I can't be a Raider anymore. I want to win a Super Bowl. I got limited time. And if you are a sensible Raiders fan, you're probably going to sit there and go, yeah, our organization sucks. Like, we haven't been competitive for the last 20 years. Like what, 18 out of 20 seasons? They made the Super Bowl in the early 2000s. They made the playoffs twice with Derek Carr. One year he was hurt. Like, this team's bad. And most Raiders fans, if they're being truthful and not just sycophants, they know that. So I don't believe that Crosby would be the bad guy. I think it's a miscalculation by him if he's thinking, oh, I don't want to be the one that forces the trade. I just want the Raiders to trade me, but I can't be the one that says it. Then let's go to Joe Schoen. There's a lot of questions about Joe Schoen's role in the organization now with John Harbaugh coming on in. John Harbaugh has a ton of power. John Harbaugh obviously has more power than Joe Schoen. But John Harbaugh also brought in a new, what's the exact title here? The title is, they brought in a lady by the name of Donna Ponte, who is the Senior Vice President of Football Operations and Strategy. Now, she doesn't report to Joe Schoen. You'd think that she would report to the general manager. She reports to John Harbaugh. So Joe Schoen was at his press conference today in Indianapolis, and he was having a little back and forth with Pat Leonard. Does a tremendous job covering the New York Giants. And Joe Schoen made it clear that he's still the general manager of this team and still has a lot of power with the Giants organization. Here is the GM of the Giants in Joe Schoen.
At the league office, the three teams that she's worked with before, she's been on health and safety committees. You know, she's been in charge of the salary cap negotiations in the past. So her skill set's going to help us across the entire, football organization. So, a really good hire, a really good ad for the New York Giants that I'm fired up about.
Who will direct the conversations about contracts with agents or free agents? Are you running those meetings? Is Dawn running those? Are you doing that collaboratively? How's that?
Yeah, and Pat, I'm still the general manager of the team, and my role has not changed. I'm still tasked with leading the entire football operation, and we're going to work in collaboration like most good teams do. And, it's going to be a collaborative. Everybody's going to have their role, but there's constant communication between Dawn, Coach Harbaugh, myself, in terms of how we're going to build the football operation, and then how we're going to execute, the draft, trades, free agency, contract signings, coaching staff, whatever it may be. We're going to work in collaboration together. We're aligned in that, and, it's been going really good so far.
Hey, Joe, has your contract been addressed at all?
I'm not going to get into my personal situation.
Joe,
I appreciate it.
Joe,
So the question now becomes, what is that relationship going to be like with John Harbaugh and Joe Schoen? Because, for example, when Mike Vrabel was hired as the coach of the Patriots, a lot of people thought Elliott Wolf would have one more year left and he would be gone. And right now, Elliott Wolf is still helping run the New England Patriots. There is without question, though, that if Mike Vrabel went to Robert Kraft and said, hey, I tried with Elliott, we just don't vibe together, he's just not my guy, we got to get rid of Elliott Wolf, there is no doubt in my mind that Robert Kraft would get rid of Elliott Wolf tomorrow. But even though a lot of people thought that's what was going to inevitably happen, Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf have been able to have a successful working relationship at least 1 year in where neither has the appetite for divorce. So Joe Schoen does not have more power than John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh could get Joe Schoen fired in a snap of a finger. And I'm not saying Donna Ponte is going to start running the Giants, but she has a large role. And Joe Schoen's going to have to work with her together because she reports to John Harbaugh. And if they have a bad relationship, Dawn and Joe, then Dawn goes to John and goes, I'm not happy with Joe. And inevitably, Joe Schoen's going to be shown the door, if that's the way that it goes. But knowing how that relationship worked with Vrabel and Wolf, and Vrabel bringing in more of his guys or his gals, and for Joe Schoen, you got to adapt and you got to be flexible. And if you're adapting, you're flexible, and you're still able to help the team, then you and John Harbaugh can work together. So is there a thought and an assumption that after the season, John Harbaugh will get his way and Joe Schoen will be gone? Sure. But just because you think that now doesn't mean that when these two start to get close together and work together, that that's the way that it's going to go. Because I just saw it play out in New England with Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf, and for now that appears to be a healthy relationship. Maybe it eventually will have an expiration date. Maybe next year, Elliott Wolf, if the Patriots regress, will get fired. But it's working in New England, so maybe it could work with Joe Schoen and John Harbaugh. And then finally, John Eric Sullivan, who I would just want to call John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. He is the new general manager of the Miami Dolphins. And here is what John Sullivan had to say about the future of Tua Tagovailoa.
We're evaluating the entire roster, right? As it pertains to Tua, I know that question is coming, so I'll just get ahead of the curve. We've had conversations with Tua and his representation. Everything's on the table, including the potential of a trade. We don't know which way that's going to go. There's a lot of different factors at play, a lot of conversations being had, but evaluating the roster, Quinn did a nice job towards the end of the year. Excited about what's ahead for him. Tua, I thought, even though things didn't go well at the end of the year, did some good things along the way, and it's my job to infuse competition into that room along with every other room as we go down the road.
As you build an identity as a franchise, how much?
Let's just be real. There's a 0% chance Tua is back on this team. When John Eric Sullivan was at that fan event with Jeff Hafley, we played this clip a week ago, and the fans are booing Tua and then cheering when he talks about bringing competition into that room. They know Tua's not going to be on the roster. They're just trying to find a trade partner. And with the way that contract is, I don't think that contract is tradable. So then you have to ask yourself, do we just keep him on the roster or release him? And where that relationship is at, I do believe that Tua Tagovailoa is going to get released. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we'll go live to the Combine. Sam Brookhouse is going to join us from Sumer Sports. He's a senior data scientist for Sumer Sports. Does a great job talking all thing NFL draft. We'll get into a bunch of trade rumors with him, and we'll see what kind of data that he has with us when it comes to the NFL. And then at the top of the hour, at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, we are continuing our offseason coverage as we go through all 32 teams. We have already talked about the Raiders. We have already talked about the New York Jets. We have also already talked about the Arizona Cardinals. I think we're going to try to stay true to the draft order. So we progress to the team with the 4th overall pick. We'll do a whole offseason report on the Tennessee Titans with Titans sideline reporter Will Bowling. That will come your way at the top of the hour. But we'll go to Indy next, where Sam Brookhouse will be standing by with us.
What I love most about playing basketball is the competition. I really just like being shifty, mastering hesitation moves, changing direction, building chemistry with new teammates. If you're not having fun while you're playing, there's no point in playing the game. You know what to do. Escape Basics. Pair of Thieves quick dry underwear. It wicks away sweat and helps keep you dry. You looking forward to fishing season?
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
I'm here to work out with you.
We did not put this little cookie cutter program together.
I'm in there with you, sweating, yelling, doing the damn thing.
Transform by Core Home Fitness.
A secret, I travel internationally every year. I struggle with insomnia both at home and especially in hotels. This was life-changing. It's called Fly Kit. My favorite aspect of the Fly Kit is it tells you when to sleep.
Dude, check out this robe. This is the dude robe. It's perfect for after the shower, gym, or even the beach. This thing is awesome. It also has this super premium towel lining to dry you off right away. Dude, what are you waiting for? Get yourself a dude robe today.
At Dreamy, we believe that life can be upgraded in comfort, convenience, and joy.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
This is Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. Let's go to Indianapolis. Our guy Sam Brookhouse of Sumer Sports is live at the Combine, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Sam, appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is like my favorite time of the year by far. I think we talked at the Super Bowl a little bit. I saw you at the Super Bowl. That's kind of a wild time where it's how can we get, the most engagement, the best hits. The Combine is football. Like when I'm walking around here, people aren't asking about the Super Bowl or whatever. They're asking about how teams are going to make themselves better. And it's just such an exciting thing to talk about because you get to talk about positional value. You get to talk about the year in review and the year in advance and all this other stuff. So real football is being talked about in Indianapolis for sure.
There's a few pressing issues before you get to the Combine, and all the GMs speak, right? Most of the coaches speak. They're there.
Yeah.
Let's start it off with A.J. Brown. I saw Nick Sirianni gave a quote to ESPN. He's like, I can't guarantee anything when it comes to A.J. or himself for that matter. We also saw Howie Roseman said it's tough to find great players. A.J.'s a great player, but you're always listening. I hear those things, and I basically hear business is open. If you want A.J. Brown, make us an offer we can't refuse, and you can get him.
Yeah. We did a podcast with Mike Mayock, who's on our staff here, and he basically said if Howie Roseman gives you a call, you answer, but you answer cautiously. And I think the idea here is that as we lead into the draft, it's probably going to take a lot to get A.J. Brown. But at the same time, this is the Eagles we're talking about. They've made progressive moves in the past, and they'll continue to make progressive moves as long as Howie Roseman and crew is there. This is an extremely analytically based group. I'm sure they have their own numbers on A.J. Brown. The one thing that I'll highlight from a data perspective is that the wide receiver aging curve is a little bit earlier than you would really expect, given how we've seen, tight ends and stuff like that age in the past, pass catchers more generally. And there is a question of whether A.J. Brown is beginning to age into the stage of his career that we saw with guys like Julio Jones or other excellent players who all of a sudden just kind of stop being that type of guy, whether that's due to injury or not. And I think the Eagles are smartly trying to get ahead of that as a result.
From a data standpoint, what do you think it would take for the Raiders to unload Max Crosby and send him on his way?
This is an excellent one, and I think you have to start kind of going down the tube of where is Max Crosby's value. And I think there's two non-quarterback positions that you truly would want to restart your franchise with, and that's the wide receiver position and the edge position. I think even the tackle position is a slight bit down. And so is Max Crosby certifiably in the Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons camp? I think it's hard to say no. I think it's hard to say that he's not a guy who can radically change your defense, given he's been able to keep that defense afloat for several years. And he provides run support. He provides pass rushing top level, and he also plays every snap, which is even a thing Micah Parsons doesn't do. So I think you start at the Micah Parsons trade, and I think that was kind of an undervalued trade in terms of Micah Parsons. I was shocked that was the case. You look at something like the Khalil Mack trade from years ago, and I think it's going to take multiple first-round picks to get him off of that team.
Sam Brookhouse, we know that this draft is going to start at the top with the Raiders, and it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. If Fernando Mendoza was in last year's draft class, do you think Tennessee would have taken Cam Ward or Fernando Mendoza?
Oh, it's an excellent question. And I think if you're a traits person, then you're probably going to go with Cameron Ward. I think that Cameron Ward had the better arm, but I think functionally they're probably very similar. They're both productive passers at the next level. They both were able to make passes over completion, over expectation. The biggest problem with both of those guys is sack avoidance. And I think that's a major question that not a lot of people are talking about with Fernando Mendoza, because he is more of a classical drop back passer, despite, having some big runs as well. But people aren't raving about his mobility per se. But I think it's tough to say. I think the better class to compare it to would be the 2024 class. And I think that both Ward and Mendoza are in that J.J. McCarthy realm in terms of his projection at the time. I realize we've seen a little bit of McCarthy now, but I still think that it's possible that you would take him below a guy like Bo Nix and below a guy like Penix, and that he's more in that J.J. McCarthy realm than in the May or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams realm.
It's interesting because we were talking about this and we did what you just said. You go back to that 2024 draft class, and I was like, okay, because I think everyone acknowledges Mendoza's good, but I still think there's some skepticism. Can he be elite? Can he be great? And I would say, yes, I would have taken Caleb Williams over him. I would have taken Jaden Daniels over him. I would have taken Drake May over him. But after that, I think I would have gone Mendoza over Nix, Mendoza over Penix, and Mendoza over McCarthy.
I think that the thing that sets Penix and Nix apart at the time was the sack avoidance, for sure. And we basically saw the Broncos be able to make a whole offense out of that sack avoidance. Now, is he probably more talented in particular than Bo Nix? Yes. I don't know if I'd make that same argument for Michael Penix at the time, but if you do want to make the argument that Michael Penix had substantial injuries that had several questions as a result, I think I could get behind that. I think if you're tiering these guys, though, he's probably if you're tiering them and you're saying McCarthy is in that group, particularly because at the time he was young and he was a little bit more mobile than a guy like Mendoza and Penix, for example, I think he'd be solidly in that group. I, for one, probably would have liked Nix, definitely would have liked McCarthy at the time. Like, if you're just handing me profiles, of course. And I probably would have put him in a similar situation as Penix, given that Penix also had injury concerns.
Sam Brookhouse here with us from Sumer Sports. I did a segment 2 weeks ago, and it's like what I think I know about the NFL draft already. And I said, I believe there's going to be two receivers that go in the top 10. And I said Cardell Tate and then Jordan Tyson. Today I wake up and I see the latest mock draft from Mel Kiper Jr. He has Tate going 6 to the Browns, but then he doesn't have Tyson being wide receiver number 2. He has Mekhi Lemon going 8th to the Saints. Are we starting to see maybe it not be Tate and Tyson, the first 2 wide receivers off the board?
I think that with a small degree of confidence, I'd say it would probably be Tate and Lemon. But I think it's very possible all 3 of these guys get pushed up in the top 12. We just talked to Dane Brugler, which will be coming out on Sumer Sports' YouTube channel shortly. And he believes that Tyson's a certified top 12 talent. Now, you have injury concerns, you have all this other stuff. But I think it's all 3 of them have different stuff. You have your kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown next-gen positionless wide receiver in Lemon. You have your old-school guy who's going to line up on the outside and win in Tate. And you have a guy who has been pretty productive for the past 2 years and is a true separator in Tyson. I think all 3 of those guys could functionally go up in the top 12, particularly given it's extremely hard to find all pro or Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers outside the top 15 picks. It's one of the hardest things to do in football.
If you're the Jets at 2 and Mendoza's going 1, who do you take? Because the Jets should be in the business to truly draft the best player available.
100%. And I think that you have to look extremely closely at the edge position and evaluating that. The good thing is they have 3 options practically. You have Arvell Reese, who is kind of the wild card, crazy athlete. Again, we've talked to a bunch of people here. They're putting him certifiably in the Abdul Carter type of athlete, Micah Parsons type of athlete, and who's done it in an NFL-style defense coordinator. Matt Patricia was his defense coordinator, so he's put him in positions to succeed in positions that it will look similar to in the future. Don't forget Aaron Glenn, who should be calling the defense this year, is at his heart a Belichick guy. So I think Arvell Reese is a way that you could go. You could go with Reuben Bain and go with defensive tackle to defensive end, positional versatility, and a guy who just succeeded. I think he is like the Will Campbell of this draft, where sure, he's going to have athletic concerns, but he's a great athlete who violently wins and will definitely be able to play snaps for you somewhere at the next level, much like Will Campbell was. Or you can go with David Bailey, who's more of the defensive pass rush specialist. I think the Jets certifiably have to go with an edge rusher at number 2. I'm not sure which one it should be yet. The data has a realm of different options. It's kind of a smorgasbord, and none of them really intersect. So it'll be interesting to see what they prioritize.
So if someone says, hey, I think Caleb Downs is the best player available at 2 for the Jets, I know that what you just said about pass rush, but explain why they should go with the pass rusher over a player like Downs.
I'm a big believer in positional positional value. And as a data scientist, this is something that I'm really going to stick to. And this is why you have data scientists like me and you have evaluators. So evaluators are going to do what you said. They're going to try to get the Jeremiah Loves, who a lot of Todd McShay just came out with his big board. He thinks he's certifiably the best player at his position in the draft. You have Caleb Downs, who is a safety, has played a little bit of linebacker. Some of our scouts think he has positional versatility on the outside, could potentially line up in some exotic sets as a cornerback as well. Yeah, sure. They may be the certified blue chip players at their positions. They're just not paid a lot. And the reason they're not paid a lot is because NFL evaluators think you can kind of win without the running back and safety positions. And if that's the case, you could probably wait to get those types of safeties, get those types of running backs in the 2nd and 3rd round. That's what we've seen teams be able to do time and time again, while attacking the positions that are so hard to get otherwise in the top 15. And particularly when the guys like Arvell Reese, like Reuben Bain, like David Bailey, you like the wide receivers, they're not like sloppy Joes out here. Like, people really think these are top tier talents. So why wouldn't you target those top tier talents, even if you think the safety or the running back is technically the best at his position? I think that's what you have to do as a data scientist.
I watch so many of these mock drafts, and it feels like now Reese and Bailey are moving past Bain. If Bain falls to like 10 or 11, is that just an absolute steal?
Yeah, I mean, like, at some point, production has to come into play. And look, David Bailey was immensely productive this year. And to his credit, I mean, Bain had Mesidor on the outside on a stacked Miami team. Bailey also had Lee Hunter and Romello Height, all these other guys of Texas Tech. So maybe it's a similar situation. We've just seen Bain do it for 3 years in a way that we really haven't seen Bailey do it. And also, Bailey just doesn't bring as much in the run game, which is important, as Bain. And so I think it's a critical error if you're not grouping those guys together, just because Reuben Bain's arms aren't as long. And there's not even a great correlation of arm length to success at the next level. You look at Reuben Bain, and this is just a guy that I believe in. I think he'd be my top guy. I need to dive deeper into Arvell Reese and try to understand if we can get a sense of if his production really does track to the next level. But the defensive end position and the wide receiver position are production-based positions in which you're running a route a ton, you're pass rushing a ton. And so as a result, like, Reuben Bain is productive. Why would we look past that? I have no idea.
If a GM hit you up and said, I'm contemplating using a first-round pick on Jeremiah Love, when is too early for Jeremiah Love?
The first round, period. That's what I believe. You cannot take a running back in the first round. We've seen people make this mistake over and over and over again. And even when you do take running backs high and they hit, they're productive, doesn't mean you're going to win. So if, like, I'm the Giants and I took Saquon Barkley, sure, it kind of helped me get to a playoff run, but it ended up getting my head coach fired. Like, Leonard Fournette's another example where, like, Leonard Fournette played pretty well. They make the AFC Championship game. Is that really the reason they made the AFC Championship game? Bijan Robinson, coach, GM, fired despite it being an excellent pick. You don't do it in the first round. You can go get Breece Hall. You can go get Travis Etienne. You can go get all these guys. You do not draft Jeremiah Love in the first round. I said it last year with Ashton Genty. I'm saying it again this year.
Now, hold on. The Chiefs draft him 9th overall.
Don't do it.
Can that be an exception? Come on, Mahomes
why
and
would
Jeremiah
you do it?
Love?
Why would you do it when you have Kareem Hunt being the most successful running back that you picked up off of the trash pile, and you got Pacheco, who, you know, is extreme, like, wasn't even considered to be close to a day 1 or day 2 pick. All of a sudden, he's one of the top fantasy guys. Like, why would a team who has seen success, I mean, like, we can go back to, like, Charkandrick West, Spencer Ware. The Chiefs have been able to do this time and time again. It makes no sense for them to draft Jeremiah Love, in my opinion.
Last thing I'll ask you, Sam Brookhouse, Sumer Sports, who are some players that you're high on in this draft, or maybe could be some steals? Just some guys that, like, now we're not maybe talking about the top 10, but you think could be really good players.
I'm a lot higher on Jennings Dunker, for example. Swing offensive lineman. Some people think he's a guard. Some people think he's a tackle. He should go in, like, I think he'll get pushed up because he has some great traits and he's going to be a pretty good athlete. We, in particular, think he's an excellent run blocker. I think this is a guy who people don't realize could be like the Gray Zabel in this draft, or he could be that tackle that ends up kind of popping up in the 2nd or 3rd round and really filling a great need for a tackle. That's a guy who I'm really, really bought in on. And then I think you look at some other guys across positions. D'Angelo Pons is a guy who's shorter but is excellent at press coverage. We talked to Kamari Lassiter at the Super Bowl, and he discussed with us is if you win in press coverage, the guy doesn't get off the line. You don't have to worry about anything else. This is a guy who we have as a certified blue chip press coverage guy. That's another guy to look out for. And, you start looking at these running backs deep and far, and you look for some interesting stories. A guy like Eli Heidenreich, who posted the fastest running back time in Shrine Bowl history. We also think he had excellent vision as a Navy kind of swing back, slot back. I think it's really interesting how that turns out. And so I think there's a bunch of guys that are just interesting. I think this is a draft that at the top level, you have a couple blue chip guys, maybe 3 or 4. You have a lot of quality starters, and you're going to see a lot of value come from the middle rounds as well.
I know you got to bounce. So last one, I know I just last one you, but I had one more thing popped into mind. I don't think Ty Simpson should be a 1st-round pick, but I think he will. Where are you at on that sentiment?
I agree with you. He does not have any blue chip traits. I think he's going to come in as a size. And again, size is not the most correlative thing ever, but I think he's going to come in at about 6 foot. He's listed at 6'2" right now. Me and a bunch of team guys have been discussing the over under of what that should be, would be. And when you have a quarterback, you don't want to just push him up. I think that's a little risky. I think you take the quarterback. I think if you need to add a quarterback, you take him, but you take him at consensus. And I think that's the case with Ty Simpson. I don't think he should get pushed up into the 1st round.
He is Sam Brookhouse of SumerSports.com, data scientist. And there's always one fight in these conversations when we get Sam on. This time it was about Jeremiah Love, who the Chiefs should absolutely draft in the top 10. And I don't even like Kansas City. I don't want to see them do well. But Sam, enjoy the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's. Make sure Stopsky gets you all fat this week, all right?
Hey, Stopsky already hit me with the shrimp cocktail. I didn't order it, and he just put it in front of me. So my eyes were burning. The nose was filled up. So he already got me. So thanks for having me, Zach.
There he is, Sam Brookhouse. This is the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
I'm Abby Dommett, 2023 CrossFit Games athlete, and I use Airwave because it helps me breathe easier and stay more relaxed during my workouts.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very discreet.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, welcome on in. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports. We go from Sam Brookhouse of Sumer Sports, who's in Indianapolis, continuing our offseason coverage. Will Bowling does a great job covering the Tennessee Titans as their sideline reporter and obviously hosts the morning show on The Zone, and he's kind enough to join us right now to preview Tennessee's offseason. Will, thanks for the time. How are you?
Happy to be here, Zach. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start you off with the year that was just had for Cam Ward. A year into this partnership, what are your thoughts on what Cam Ward showed you this past year?
Yeah, I think you like a lot of what happened after the Week 10 bye week for Cam. And you see him starting to understand the timing and the rhythm that it takes to be an NFL quarterback. Weeks 1 through 9 were rocky, and I think we expected that. When you make a play caller change and then a head coach change, and there are a lot of moving parts for a player that shows a lot of talent, has a lot of arm ability, and needed to kind of hone it in a little bit. And really after the Week 10 bye week, I think you saw Cam Ward and the Titans start to build a foundation for what they hope is a step forward in 2026. And you see Cam not taking as many sacks, completing over 62% of his passes. He's starting to figure it out. And now you have a quarterback that has totally changed the narrative on I think, who he is going into the offseason. Didn't have turnover problems and played, Zach, the hardest schedule in the NFL. Titans were number 1 in strength of schedule last year. And his games against Houston, against Seattle after that bye week kind of aged pretty well, to be totally honest with you. So we love the person that Cam Ward is here in Nashville and in Tennessee. And he is wired a little bit differently. He is an alpha competitor who I think learned how to become an NFL quarterback in real time and learned a lot of lessons last season.
And the thing I've always been impressed with him, and I had a conversation with him when he was at Washington State, and I know the story, zero-star recruit at Incarnate Word, and then obviously made his way to Washington State, and then really had a lot of traction at Miami. But he's always done more with less. Like, I'm a Patriot fan. Statistically, Drake May did not have the greatest rookie season, but if you watch the games, you go, man, the Pats had nothing around him, and this kid was a gamer. That's why I'm excited to see what year 2 is for Cam Ward, because it's not as if he has the greatest supporting cast in the world. And at the end of the year, yes, the stats aren't going to be remembered with Jaden Daniels' rookie season or CJ Stroud's rookie season, but there was probably more good than bad.
I would say so. And I think you definitely have to find just the strength of opponent that the Titans played. I mean, the AFC South was much improved this season. Then you add in the NFC West as the AFC South's NFC division to play this year. The Titans' 4th place division team in the AFC, they played the New England Patriots, who obviously we know and turned out to be a pretty good opposition. Pretty good is an understatement, of course, but I think that's kind of where you have to begin to evaluate Cam Ward's rookie season. And two, his time to throw and the next gen stats, the NFL Pro stuff tells us that he started to get rid of the ball more quickly later in the season. Once the Titans had a healthier offensive line, once you get former first round pick Latham back healthy at right tackle, starting to feel like himself the second half of the season, you started to see who Cam Ward really is. He's a gunslinger. If you talk to him, he will tell you that in about the first 5 minutes of evaluating himself, talking about what he's good at. He'll tell you he's a gunslinger, and he loves it. And now you have an offensive coordinator coming in with Brian Daboll for Robert Saleh's staff, who I think is going to embrace that, and an offensive coordinator that is well documented when he was the head coach of the New York Giants, was willing to trade everything to move up to the number 1 overall pick this time last year to draft Cam Ward. There's a lot to like about this guy and his personality, his leadership. And I think now he's got a really, really good partner in crime in Brian Daboll, who can kind of speak his same language a little bit.
And I wanted to ask you more about Daboll, and I'm curious about what the reaction is locally to that hiring, because I live in New York City, and Daboll, right, had that one great season with the Giants the first year where he won Coach of the Year. And then there were a lot of moments after that where you start saying to yourself, all right, maybe this guy's just better off being an offensive coordinator than head coach. So I think he'd be a guy that gets a second chance as a head coach in this league. Yes, I do, especially with his background. But him winding up in Tennessee is interesting to me because I do think that was probably one of the hotter names on the market in the offensive coordinating search, probably second behind Mike McDaniel.
I would agree. And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, getting to know Brian, getting to know Cam Ward, they're wired the same way. And that's kind of how I started all this off by saying Cam Ward's wired a little bit differently. I think Cam really benefits from having a voice that can tell him no, that he really respects. And he and Daboll became very close last year in the draft process. The Giants were not shy about their courtship of Cam. And Brian Daboll talked about that in his introductory press conference, about going to dinner with Cam, about getting to know his parents, getting to know his family. I just think the two are close and are kind of kindred spirits in a lot of ways. I mean, we know from watching Brian Daboll just interact with New York Giants staffers and players and, you know, a concussion tent on the sideline, just how fiery he is. That's the kind of competitor that Cam Ward is. So I do think there is a friendship that was formed there that probably helped break some ties, to be honest with you, for the Titans. I also think Brian Daboll and Robert Saleh, although they've never worked together, became close as the two New York head coaches. And that's something that I don't think was really talked about or reported on that we've learned over the past couple of weeks and over the past month, is that those two kind of understood what the other was going through a little bit, you know, dealing with New York media, dealing with the pressure of being a New York football coach. They became friends. And I genuinely believe that those two things made the difference. You know, the Philadelphia Eagles being in the mix for Brian Daboll. I think Brian Daboll wanted to work with Cam Ward, and I think he wanted to work with his buddy Robert Saleh. And at the end of the day, you know, plenty of people from New York are moving to Nashville, right? So what's you know, not a couple more just working for the local professional football team.
Yeah. Do you see the 2 feet of snow that we have in the background there? There's
Right.
probably a lot of reasons to go to Nashville and a great party city and a fun town to obviously go to. When you get to Saleh, though, a little bit more on him, like that's a guy, I know he's a great defensive coordinator. It's tough to evaluate the tenure with the Jets because he never truly had a quarterback. And even when they got Rodgers got hurt 3 plays into the season. Like, were you guys surprised that he resurfaced in Tennessee? Was that the name that was being thrown out there? Because I look at Tennessee, it's not a great job, but you do have the young quarterback. And if you have a quarterback and you believe in that quarterback, I don't care, you know, what the history is or what people think of the job. That's 50% of this game if you have the quarterback or not.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. He was one of the top names pretty early into this process. I think for 2 reasons. First of all, he is similar to what the Titans got rid of in order to bring in Brian Callahan and Mike Vrabel. Now, obviously, very different experiences as head coaches their first times around, but as people, as leaders, as quote-unquote culture builders, leader of men, all those buzzwords we throw out in the offseason and coaching search season that probably don't even mean very much, the aura, the personality, the just overall leadership styles, I think, are similar. So I think that's number one. You're drawn to the opposite of what you just had. And what you did was an offensive-minded guy who couldn't have been more different. And Brian Callahan's a great guy. I think a great offensive coach, and I think he'll learn from what went wrong here. But you go the opposite direction. I think the second reason is they wanted head coaching experience. And you look around this entire front office, it is a front office that is comprised of people that have been lead football executives. Reggie McKenzie, who's with the Raiders and with the Dolphins, is in this front office. Dave Ziegler, former general manager of the Raiders, is in this front office as an executive. Chad Brinker, the highest ranking football executive at one point. Now that's Mike Borgonzi, president of football operations. For a year there, he was the highest ranking football executive here. And now it's Mike Borgonzi. So you really have 4 people who have done that job at the highest level for an organization. Well, they wanted the same thing in this coaching staff. So Robert Saleh, obviously head coaching experience. Gus Bradley coming in as defensive coordinator, head coaching experience. Brian Daboll, even Bones Fossil, the special teams coordinator, was an interim head coach for the Rams when Jeff Fisher was fired there. So you've got 4 coaches and 4 executives who have all been highest ranking football people. Experience is really valuable. And I think when the Titans looked around and when they went through this process, I think Saleh's experience and saying the right things about what went wrong in New York, I think they liked what they heard. One of those things was not being the defensive play caller. Robert Saleh is going to call plays in Nashville on defense. Gus Bradley has been the voice in his headset as he's done that just this past year in San Francisco. And those two have a working relationship to where everyone in positions of leadership for the Titans this year are doing a job they've done before. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're, wild successes at those jobs. I think it raises the floor, though, Zach, of where this organization is. A regime removed from head coach Brian Callahan, who had never even called plays in the NFL. Defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, who ended up being good, but first-time defensive coordinator at the time. Nick Holtz had never been an OC. You go down the list. Colt Anderson, who got fired after 1 year, special teams coordinator, had never been a special teams coordinator. They are banking on experience in both the front office and in that coaching staff, paying dividends this time around.
From afar, I look at the Tennessee Titans where they just had to hire new coach in Robert Saleh, and I go, how did they let Mike Vrabel get away? But I understand the context. Him and the owner clearly weren't getting along anymore. Mike did not want to be there. Even as someone that was pushing for Vrabel to come back to Foxborough, I've never seen an owner, a coach, an acting head coach be in another owner's box. I understand they were putting him in the Hall of Fame, but it was so obvious from that moment that Vrabel was laying the foundation to make the move, from Nashville back to Foxborough. Did Vrabel, I don't want to say check out on this team, but did Vrabel start to say, I'm good in Tennessee once, I think it was John Robinson at that draft traded A.J. Brown? Because from afar, that's when I think Vrabel was like, look at what we've done. What is this organization doing right now?
Yeah, it really is a tricky one because at the end of the day, Mike Vrabel's an outstanding football coach. There's no one here that is going to debate you on that. And at the same time, his ending in Tennessee, a lot of it had some self-inflicted wounds, and his inability to hire good assistant coaches here was his final straw. Ironically, that's part of what made him so good right away in New England was building a really good staff. He didn't have that here at the end. He did at the beginning when Matt LaFleur was his OC, his first year as head coach in 2018. He had Dick LeBeau. There were good people around at that time, and he was able to bring in solid defensive coaches, solid offensive coaches. Terrell Williams was on that staff as defensive line coach. The problem was then the hires after LaFleur and Arthur Smith. When Arthur Smith got that job in Atlanta, going from him to Todd Downing as offensive coordinator, who was not good, going to then Tim Kelly, who was not able to really build any kind of consistency on offense. And yes, you have Derrick Henry as a part of that offense. You trade A.J. Brown away, but that was the point. This was not the Tannehill is just sitting out there spinning a football on his finger waiting for a call. And really their lack of offensive line development, I think, was a really big deal. And Keith Carter, the O-line coach, was not well liked here at the end. Former Titan and obviously Busted with the Boys podcast host now, Taylor Lewan, has talked about that very vocally. So it was tricky. Yes, Mike Vrabel is a great football coach, but that staff at the end just wasn't up to the standard, I think, that he had set early in his tenure here. So it is a tricky history because we're all watching the Patriots run thinking that'd be nice, right? Obviously he knows what he's doing. He's an elite game management coach. I think he's a good people person in that building. But he has an acquired taste. And I just think relationships got frayed at the end. And ultimately the decision to move on from him wasn't the worst one. It was the decision to who they moved on with him with and what the succession plan was from there. I think that's where the real mistake started to snowball for this organization.
Will Calvin Ridley be on this team next year?
Boy, that's a great question. I doubt it. I doubt it at this point. I think that you're going to see this team rely on younger drafted wide receivers. And I think that's where they're probably going to look with one of their first two picks. We just got done talking with Jordan Reed of ESPN for our Titans podcast. And there are a lot of names at wide receiver there at 35. So I doubt it. I doubt it. That being said, the Titans have had a history and a routine of having needs, but then also getting rid of players that were already on their team that could have also filled those needs. So for me, it's something you have to consider to say, look, Calvin Ridley can't be the number one wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans in 2026. what is his motivation level to be here at a number lower than what he's already signed for? That's still going to be higher than what he's going to get on the open market. I think that decision comes down to Calvin's ability or willingness to take a pay cut, to understand, like, Calvin, a pay cut here is still more than I think what a team's going to offer him in the open market. So if I had to guess at this point, I'd say it's probably a 70 to 75% chance that he's not here. But considering the needs the Titans have at wide receiver, you can't totally dismiss it.
I'm going to ask you a question that you probably think is crazy because he's your best player, Jeffrey Simmons. Is there a chance they trade in this offseason because of maybe how bare this roster is to just get as many assets as possible?
I never say never, but I will say there's a 99% chance that no, he will not be traded. Jeffrey Simmons on this football team right now is the closest thing, and he is one based on the way he played last year, closest thing to an elite player that this team has. This team needs foundational building blocks. This team needs faces to put on the facade of a brand new stadium that opens in 2027. And no, you don't make decisions just based on marketing in a new stadium, but I do think that speaks to a larger point about this roster is who else do you build around if he is not here, not named Cam Ward? And so I think that's number one. I think secondly, Jeffrey Simmons is the model Tennessee Titan that Mike Borgonzi and this front office want to emulate to other players. Jeffrey Simmons came on our radio show, this would have been last April or May, talking about how he had a goal of having a double-digit sack season. He was making some changes. He wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and he wanted to attack 2025 in a different way that he'd ever gone into a season. It worked. I mean, he's a all-pro defensive tackle. He really would have been talked about, I think, a lot more in National Football League circles nationally had the Titans been a better football team. So I think he is the type of leader this organization needs. And this team has made a habit out of moving on too soon from drafted Titans homegrown talents. And I think that would be a mistake to move on from another one. This team's had too many mercenaries and too many guys that come in free agency and come here to get paid, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's the most direct way to describe it. And they need more people that have been raised within this organization who care about the organization and being leaders in the locker room. And Jeffrey Simmons is the guy that we talk to in that locker room and the face of this franchise for good reason.
We've been going through the draft order, and it's not a surprise that we see constant themes with the teams that are picking near the top when you look at the Raiders and the Jets and the Cardinals. And this question comes up, and we kind of just alluded to it. Like, Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons are probably the two best players on this team. When you look at building this team, can you give me three other players that, like, you're like, okay, Tennessee has these three guys that they could maybe not be franchise players, but they could build with to get this ship moving in the right direction?
The first one I think of is Peter Skoronski at left guard. And that's not a premium position. It's not a sexy position. I host my radio show with former Pittsburgh Steelers guard Ramon Foster. So I feel like I'm something of a guard advocate.
You know what? I'm annoyed at Ramon Foster. I used to put him on the air a lot. He used to talk to me a lot. We used to have good conversations. I don't even hear from him anymore. So you tell Ramon I'm looking for him. I won't kick his ass, but I'm looking for him.
I will pass that along. I can tell you, Zach, walking around here, because it's just me up here with the team, and he's back in Nashville. That is the question I get the second people know who I am is, where's Ramon? So I'm used to it and I embrace it. But Peter Skoronski's one. He only allowed 2 sacks this season, according to PFF. Year 3 jump that you see in a lot of linemen. He made it. He was excellent. I thought that he was an outside candidate to be a Pro Bowl guard. Listen, we let Shedeur Sanders in the Pro Bowl now. It doesn't mean anything, even if he had been in it. But he was a Pro Bowl caliber guard. I'll say that this season for the Titans. I say another one, Cedric Gray, who scared a couple of tackles records at inside linebacker this season and was right up there with what Azeez Al-Shire did a couple of years ago from a production standpoint. I thought he was terrific this season. Really good see ball, hit ball guy as a downhill run stopping linebacker. Ranked second from PFF last year in run defense. So, PFF secondary source, I like it. I think it tells a story on positions like that, are a little bit more complicated to describe statistically. And then I'd say Chimere Dike as a return man. And, you say, okay, wow, you're going to the return guy, but 2 touchdowns this season in punt returns. He was a Pro Bowler and first team All-Pro as a return specialist. The question I have for this new regime is, what's his role on offense? Is he someone that you feel like is a chess piece you can move around within your offense and get him open? Is he a returner that just also plays a little bit of receiver like a Troy Franklin in Denver? Like, what are you asking him to be? So I'd say those would be the next three. It's Skaronski, Cedric Gray, and Chimere Dike. This organization had a good draft class last season. And again, a lot of it flies under the radar because of the record of the team. But you talk about Gunnar Helm at tight end, rookie out of Texas last year, had a solid rookie season. We mentioned Chimere Dike. Elikiah Manor was this team's leading wide receiver behind tight end Chigakonkwo, and he was a solid day 3 find out of Stanford. They like Kevin Winston Jr., a third-round pick safety. I know I'm giving you more than 3, and I'm copping out a little bit, but I think the story of this team is if you can find another draft class like the one you found last year, you start to see some results in 2026 and laying the foundation for what we hope is a good football team moving into a new stadium in 2027.
2 more, and then I'll let you run. Roe Bowling does a great job. Tennessee Titans sideline reporter. Also, a morning drive on the zone with Ramon Foster, who's going MIA for me for the last 2 years. But the AFC South, it used to be a division where we look at it and be like, all right, who gets the 9-10 wins? They'll get the 4:30 wildcard game on Saturday, and they won't be much of a threat. The last 3 years, the Texans have established themselves as the most consistent team in that division. The Jaguars had a very good season. I don't know how much I believe in them long term. The Colts, they were looking really great to start the year. Then you had the Daniel Jones injury, and then that team went in the wrong direction. Like, you're in the bottom of this basement right now, but when you look up, like, is it that nervous? Do you look at these teams as this, like, immovable forces, or do you think they're vulnerable?
It's a great question. I agree with you on Jacksonville, first of all. I think that they have an interesting predicament at quarterback, which as Trevor Lawrence continues to play and make as much money as he does, it gets trickier to surround him with good players. But you look at those 3 teams, all of them have a very clear identity and who they are. The Titans don't at this point. They're going to build that in real time under Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll. Robert Saleh was actually asked about this at the podium today when he was speaking about 2 hours ago here in Indy. Houston will punch you in the mouth. Jacksonville's dynamic on offense and got a lot better. And Indy was the best team in the league when Daniel Jones was healthy. So I think when you start to evaluate the division, I think you have to start with the quarterback position, because as the division does get better, every team has major questions at quarterback. The health of Daniel Jones in Indy obviously dictates their entire season and offseason. CJ Stroud just absolutely having a disaster in the postseason this year, I think has raised some big questions there. And then again, who's Trevor Lawrence, right? He's a good quarterback. He's solid, but for the money he's making, I think you expect him to be better. So the future of those 3 players, I think, is pivotal when you talk about this division. And you look at the Titans and say, all right, well, Cam Ward, if he can take a next step, and if that relationship with Brian Daboll really does work the way I think Daboll thinks it's going to, all of a sudden we can talk about Cam Ward being right up there with some of these guys if you see more inconsistencies from CJ Stroud and from Trevor Lawrence. So what you do see is good line play from those teams. Indianapolis, I think, has one of the most underrated offensive lines in the NFL. Houston's line play that's good is defensively, obviously, with Hunter and Anderson and our old friends Nico Autry, who's been there and been great. And then Jacksonville, too. I think that's a defense that was opportunistic and good at creating turnovers. Does that turnover luck kind of run out a little bit as they play a tougher schedule next season, a first-place schedule? It feels attainable to be in the thick of the division. I don't know about the top of it in 2026, but I think Titans fans would be happy on Thanksgiving. That would be the goal. Once you see the cornucopia pop up on the screen for Thanksgiving football, are the Titans in the hunt graphic? I think that's step one.
If you were the GM, and you obviously, Mendoza is going to be one. Who knows how 2 and 3 are going to play out? What are you hoping for at number 4?
Gosh, I go back and forth on this so much because part of me, last week I was a Caleb Downs guy for the Titans at 4. Take the highest floor prospect you can. Like I said earlier, you just need good, solid football players right now that are going to be here in 5 years. That's definitely, I think, the safest pick the Titans could make in the top 5. I'm coming around, though, on Reuben Bain Jr. being the pick. And I think in a Robert Saleh 4-3 defense that requires a bigger built defensive end on one side of the defensive line. I like the tape. I like the motor. I like the run stopping. I just like what Reuben Bain Jr. is about. And I hear folks talk about him. I hear people smarter than me break him down. And And I hear a lot of the things that Robert Saleh wants in his team, aggressive, vicious, like does not take plays off. And I think some of comparing him and David Bailey, the more slightly built, longer, he's going to be the sack getter edge out of Texas Tech. I think right now I'm willing to say David Bailey may be the better pass rusher. I think Ruben Payne Jr. may be the better football player. And I think that's what this Titans team needs. They don't need a 10 to 12 sack getting mercenary. What about the guy that's going to get 7 or 8 sacks at the beginning of his career, but is also going to chip in from some TFLs to help you in the run game? I think that's more valuable to a 4-3 defense that Robert Saleh wants, maybe a little bit more than Bailey. But again, we're splitting hairs. I mean, both of them are excellent football players. Both of them, I think, make the Titans a lot better right away. It's going to be really interesting. I think there are a number of players that make a lot of sense for the Titans with the 4th overall pick, and Caleb Downs, David Bailey, Ruben Payne Jr., any of those 3. And I'm really happy with any of those picks at this point.
I remember one of the great draft debates was Cincinnati a few years ago. Would you go Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell? Now, you guys also have a 2nd round pick that's very early. It's a 3rd pick in the 2nd round. With having that pick that early in the 2nd round, do you maybe avoid wide receiver then at 4, where obviously you put Cam Ward and you get, I don't know, a Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate or the kid that's rising from USC? Like maybe Tennessee looks at it that way. Like I think they're going to take a pass rusher. I would not be opposed to Downs. I don't think they're going to take a wide receiver, but do you believe it's on the table?
I do think it's more likely to be with pick 35. In a perfect world, you're able to trade back and do both. But obviously, I don't think there's a player there. The only scenario I could see where that could happen is if there is someone who falls in love with Arvell Reese and he somehow makes it to 4. And you've got somebody within their defense, they want a Swiss Army knife. They can move around the same way that Jacksonville fell in love with Travis Hunter and said, no, this is a rare player we've got to go up and get. That's the dream. I don't think it's realistic. If there's anybody, it's Carnell Tate. I think Cam Moore needs a deep threat. I think as many vertical routes as Cam likes to throw, that player's not in this team right now that is a combat catcher, deep threat wide receiver. I like someone like Malachi Fields for the Titans at the top of the 2nd round, to be honest with you. And I think you may be in the Cincinnati debate. You just might be a year ahead of it when it was T. Higgins being the pick, later in that draft process. I think you're looking for your T. Higgins in 2026 and then hopefully going to find your Jamar Chase in 2027. I just think that 4 is a little too rich for Carnell Tate or Mekhi Lemon. If Lemon can run something really fast, maybe that changes some of the dialogue on him, and he gets a lot of comparisons here in Indy to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know. I don't see it at 4. I think it's harder to find a premier edge in the 2nd round than it is a premier wide receiver. And I think edge is the 2nd most important position in this sport. And you have your quarterback, go get the 2nd most important one at 4. It's kind of the way I see it.
Have you gone to St. Elmo's yet?
Tonight, actually. We are headed there this evening. I've had the shrimp cocktail before. I was here at the Combine in 2022, and that was when it was the big, save the Combine push. So they were bringing it around to Radio Row, and I was a producer at that point. Give me 2 of them. I'm not working.
Right.
Let's go. I was a little stopped up, opened up the sinuses. But no, going tonight, very excited, going with a crew, Titans radio crew that's been there, done that. So yeah, as long as I'm not the rookie at the rookie dinner, because this is the first time around for me, I will be very happy to be there tonight.
I'm assuming you're staying in the JW Marriott?
That's where we're at. Yep.
I don't know if it's still there. This was going back to the 2nd Patriot Giants Super Bowl. There's an Italian restaurant in the lobby. I don't know how good the actual restaurant is, but I had great fried calamari from there over a decade ago.
Okay.
If you just need something, a little late night snack, maybe you go there. I don't know if it's still there.
That is as much the appeal of the Combine as the actual football, as you know. So yes, that is all great to me. Look, this is one way to get me to not go MIA, Zach, like my co-host Ramon Foster apparently has. If you recommend good food at NFL cities, I'll come on as much as you want. Kidding, of course. In all seriousness, no, it's a great town. I don't want to see the Combine be anywhere else. I've not been outside since I got out of the car with all the sky bridges. So big fan of that. Big fan of the local flavor for sure on Radio Row.
Well, Will, we appreciate it. Appreciate you jumping on board. Thanks so much. Enjoy the evening.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it. Appreciate it.
There you go. Will Bowling joining us, Tennessee Titans sideline reporter. Does a great job on their morning show on the Zone with Ramon Foster. And all kidding aside, I do like Ramon a lot, but haven't heard from him in a little bit, just messing around there. Looking at Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft, and then we'll take a break. Fernando Mendoza, obviously one. Caleb Downs, two. You know, I said this with Jake Assman when he joined us. Take the best player available if you're the Jets. That's what I would do. The Jets have so many holes. And there's 3 pass rushers in this draft where you have Reuben Bain, you have David Bailey, and then Arvell Reese. Like, those are the 3. And I don't know the order that they're going to go in. I think Bain will be the most consistent. I love David Bailey, and I thought he was overshadowed by Jacob Rodriguez. And then Arvell Reese is that Swiss Army knife that people are talking about. But if you're the Jets and you got 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years and you're not taking a quarterback at 2, I would truly go best player available, and I think that's Caleb Downs. Now, Bailey, Mel Kiper Jr. does have him going 3 to the Cardinals. Then Arvell Reese going 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Spencer Fano, the offense tackle from Utah, going to the Giants. If I'm the Giants, and I know they still need offensive line help after the offensive line was better this year, I think that they should go wide receiver. You got Jackson Dart. You have Malik Neighbors coming back from the injury. You go put Carnell Tate with Neighbors. You give a lot to work with for one Jackson Dart. They have the Browns going Cardinal Tate in at number 6 from Ohio State. Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State, going 7 to the Commanders. Then here was the interesting one. Mekhi Lemon rising up the draft board, wide receiver out of USC, going to New Orleans at 8. I thought Tate and then Jordan Tyson would be the first 2 wide receivers, but Mel Kiper now has Mekhi Lemon in at number 8. Then Jeremiah Love in at 9. If Love is there at 9, and there's a possibility maybe the Saints do take him at 8, could it be possible that the Commanders take him at 7? I guess. Imagine Jaden Daniels and Jeremiah Love in the same backfield. For Tyler Shuck, I do believe that they'll probably go more wide receiver. But if Love falls to the Chiefs, that's going to be dangerous. And I know a lot of people like Sam Brookhouse are going to say, oh, you don't want to take a running back that early, blah, 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 blah. If he's there and I'm Kansas City, I don't think all the rules are the same for you. I would take him. And then the Bengals getting Reuben Bain out of Miami in at 10. That's the latest Mel Kiper Jr. mock draft. The only other thing that I want to look at is where do you have Tyson falling and where did Ty Simpson go? I'm assuming Ty Simpson was the second quarterback taken in the first round and probably the only one. He has Jordan Tyson going to Baltimore. That'd be great for Baltimore. Zay Flowers and Jordan Tyson, hello. That would be something to work with for Lamar Jackson. And then moving on down, Ty Simpson. He has him going 21st to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the quarterback out of Alabama. Does he have another quarterback going in the first round? I don't even think Ty Simpson should be a first rounder. He does have Proctor, the big offensive lineman from Alabama, going 27 to the 49ers. Oh, Jadarian Price going 28 to the Texans. I love Jadarian Price. That is such a versatile football player. So he does not have another. He does not have another quarterback going in the first round. And I look at the situation there with Ty Simpson. I do believe that he will ultimately find his way into the first round. Personally, I would not use a first round pick on the quarterback from Alabama. I just wouldn't in Ty Simpson. He only started 1 full season. At the end of the year, I know he was dealing with an injury. Do I think that guy is going to be great in the NFL? No. Do I think he's going to be elite? No. And I think it's a 60-40 chance that it'll even just be good. Like, if I'm just being honest about it and just spitballing some numbers. I have not been impressed with the quarterback play at Alabama under Kalen DeBoer. And that's the most, like, Garrett, that's the most stunning thing to me about the Kalen DeBoer era so far with Alabama. How Michael Penix's career was dead after Indiana. He goes into Washington for 2 years, dynamite. And you have Jalen Milroe, who was an athletic freak. I know he beat Georgia, but outside of that, never popped at Alabama. And Simpson was fine. he was good, but then down the stretch that last month in the SEC championship game, he was god-awful. Against Oklahoma, he was bad. I know that they avenged it up against Oklahoma in the playoff, but then the second game, he was no good. Like that SEC championship game up against Georgia, I know he was hurt, but there were some layup throws that were short throws that weren't even in the same area code. That's the most stunning part to me about this DeBoer-Alabama partnership so far, is that the quarterback play has never been that.
I think it's going to be fine. I think they've been waiting for Keelan Russell. I really personally believe that. I think you're going to see what DeBoer can do with the quarterback at Bama over these next few years. Now, would you look back at the situation that they've had? Yeah, I think that there's been some work in progress there, but at the same time, I don't think he was dealing with the best caliber of quarterbacks. And I think he's just been waiting for this moment.
Well, then that's also on him too, because and I'm the biggest Kalen DeBoer fan that there is. But it's like Fernando Mendoza comes over from Cal to Indiana, undefeated, wins a national championship. You look at Carson Beck, who was thrown away by Georgia. He goes to Miami, leads them to a national championship game. Who even knew who Trinidad Chambliss was? Before the start of the season. Ole Miss didn't even believe in him. They weren't even starting him. He takes over the job, and you look at that run that they did go on. So the quarterback selection, I know Milroe was acquired, and then they went out there, and you know, Ty Simpson was there too, but it's like you couldn't get anyone else in there that was better. And I remember I talked to DeBoer in the summer, and I was of the line of thinking that Keelan Russell was going to be the guy, and he should win the job outright. And then the more and more you heard about it, was going to be Simpson. Yeah. And I even thought Simpson was going to be a dark horse to go win the Heisman. And for most of the season, I was looking like it was going to be right. But what ended up happening with Simpson just through 2 years, and hey, Keelan Russell is supposed to be all that, and we know that goes one of two ways. Right. Either you live up to the hype or you don't. But I will be fascinated to see, with Keelan Russell being DeBoer's guy, if this is the year they get the most out of him, because the last 2 years I've been talked into the quarterback, and I've been severely disappointed with the quarterback both times.
No, yeah, I think Alabama fans are going to be very delighted with what they get with Keelan Russell. As far as Ty Simpson goes, to me, like, he was a good quarterback. He reminded me more of like an A.J. McCarron or Greg McElroy, some of those older Saban quarterbacks that were just necessarily game man. I would say he's a step above a game manager.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, he never really fulfilled like the expectations of what you could win with a national championship caliber quarterback there. But I think he's all right. I don't see him having a long, sustained success in the NFL. I think he'd be a decent backup. Me personally, this is not like, I know it's going to come across as like a fanboy, but it's not, because I think he like really sucked this past year. But Garrett Nussmeier being healthy, to me, is going to be the steal of the quarterback in the NFL draft. If I'm a team, I'm taking Nussmeier before I'm taking the quarterback from Bama.
I don't know.
He's not great by any means.
That's the thing. And this is my point. Outside of Mendoza, I would not want to be taking a quarterback in the first round. Nussmeier, for the last 2 years, I've been hearing that he's this, that he's that, that he's this, that he's that. And his numbers some years make him look like he's a very good quarterback.
Right.
I've never been, from the hype that we've heard about him for 2 years, I have never been blown away where I say Garrett – like, if you tell me he's a 10-year player in the NFL as a backup quarterback, I could believe that. Do I ever, like, if the Steelers take him at 21, I think it's going to be another one of those Kenny Pickett situations where the guy is just not cut out to be a starting quarterback. Now, the Alabama schedule this year, they start with the ECU Pirates. Mm-hmm. Then they play Kentucky, who's now coached by Will Stein. Then they get Florida State. Then they have South Carolina at Mississippi State. The first 5 games of the season.
Yeah, it should be 5-0.
Easy peasy. Then after that, they play Georgia, tough, but they beat them the last 2 years. I know that they lost the SEC championship game. Then they're at Tennessee. Heupel always has a competitive squad. They have A&M, who Elko has that team humming.
I think that's the first time they're pushed.
Well, not Georgia?
I forgot you said Georgia.
Yeah, I would say that's a tough stretch, back to back to back, and then they have a bye week, and then they get here's what will make or break their season, like in terms of me believing in them. They need to go 3-1 in this stretch. Georgia, Tennessee, A&M, LSU. If you were undefeated prior to that, which you should be, ECU, Kentucky, Florida State, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and then you play Georgia at Tennessee, A&M at LSU, you get through that with one loss, you will be an 11-1 team going into the college football playoff, because after that you play Vanderbilt, I think it's Tennessee, Chattanooga, and then Auburn. Who will be improved this year?
Oh, man.
You're thinking 2-2.
I'm thinking 2-2 in that. I think they could beat
Not
Tennessee.
good.
I'm not sold on Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel that era might be coming to an end within the next couple of years.
But how much better can they do than Heupel? And I get it. Signetti winning a national championship changes everything. Heupel's been a damn good coach for them.
No, he has. I just think like how things have gone. The Nico fiasco. You got some out of Joey Aguilar. You were trying to get him back. I mean, just things have not gone the way that they would hope there. I think it's coming to an end. I feel like really after Hendon Hooker left.
Well, you know what it is? Let's be real.
That?
He's not the most exciting coach in the world.
No, he's not. Not at all.
He is good, not great. You know, he's a little, let's be real. And I know we're not the two greatest looking men in the world, but he's like a little bit, he presents himself a little bit sloppy and clueless. But this guy.
Bobby Hill.
That's a good line. This guy is a damn good football coach.
He is.
And Tennessee, like, let's look at where they've been since 2007. That was it. They had in 2007, they had a 10-4 season. Since then, 5-7, 7-6, 6-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 7-6, then 9-4, 9-4, 4-8, 5-7. Then after that, and Heupel got there in 2021. Mm-hmm. Then after that, they were 8-5 and 3-7. And Heupel comes in. And Heupel comes in 2021, and they go 7-6, 11-2, 9-4, 10-3, 8-5. Newsflash, Tennessee, you're not what you once were.
No.
You are not in a position, in my opinion. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, because I do hear that hot seat buzz about Josh Heupel. I don't think Tennessee is in a position, even if he has an underwhelming year this year, to move off of Josh Heupel, because who are you bringing in that's going to be better? And that's where Tennessee is going to struggle.
You give me 2 years, Dan Mullen. I'm telling you.
I like Dan a lot. Dan has come on my show a ton. Dan Mullen at Florida was good, not great.
Not great.
Dan Mullen didn't take that much accountability at the end. And he was a coach that I was often criticizing before I became very friendly with him. But I give you my honest opinion, whether I like the coach or not. But I hated his lame-ass excuses at the end. If Dan Mullen goes to Tennessee, do I think he'll be that much better than Josh Heupel? I don't. That's why I don't move off of Josh Heupel. And also, they have the relationship with the AD that comes over from UCF together from their times there. All righty, we won't take a break here because we got like 5 minutes left in the show anyway. So we'll take our final break when the show does conclude. But getting off the draft, I just want to get to two more clips that we do have for you. The last two clips that we're going to play here to wrap up the show, well, it has to do with college football. Did you see Mario Cristobal at this function last night?
Yes.
And this is to honor Steve Spurrier, correct?
Yes. It was the Steve Spurrier's, it was like an award, his award thing. Yeah.
So Kirby Smart's in the crowd. Mario Cristobal is up at the podium, and I guess he thought, Mario Cristobal, that this was the Gotham Comedy Club in New York City. Listen up to Mario Cristobal. Just have some fun at the expense of one Kirby Smart.
I'll tell you what, the first thing is it's a great piece right there to watch what a player like Carson Beck could do with great coaching. You know what I mean? No, seriously, let's give it up for Kirby Smart. Let's give it up for Kirby Smart. If it wasn't for all his years of pre-NIL, we wouldn't have NIL right now. Did you reach the money yet? Robinson family, great seeing you. We leave at 9:30 on the real jet. We have more than one restaurant in Miami as opposed to Athens. Certainly appreciate being here. I know I could go on for a little bit now. But no, you gotta give a guy like Kirby credit. You know what I mean? When you have all that time to sit at home watching us play on TV throughout the playoffs, when you don't take care of business, but congratulations on the SEC and the championship. That's awesome. We were 5-0 against the SEC. I don't know what you were, but man, I'm in enemy territory too. I got a feeling some of you are on Kirby's side. But no, you guys are super professional. I never felt so welcome in enemy territory, except last year at the Swamp, 41-17. But that was meant for that guy, the Georgia guy. Can we all say screw Georgia, screw Georgia? All right, on to the real stuff. But I didn't know this was like this, so I would, dude, you told me to do this, so I'm going. But it is an honor to be amongst awesome coaches. Thank you, Coach, for having me.
I don't know about you, Garrett. And here's the thing that I will say on this. I think a lot of people don't remember this. Mm-hmm. Mario Cristobal was on the Alabama coaching staff during the same time as Kirby Smart. So I am seeing this video go all over my timeline yesterday and this morning, and I'm saying like, oh, everyone's taking this as Mario, because without knowing that context.
Yeah.
Like one joke, you want to make a joke about, letting Carson Beck getting, away, and then you guys go to a national championship game. Fine. Funny how he doesn't bring up the interception that Carson Beck threw in that national championship game. But you want to make that one joke, but then you make like the NIL joke as well. And the only reason we have NIL is because Kirby was doing this before. I see that from afar and I go, ooh, like this is like there's a line and he crossed the line a little bit. But then knowing the context that a lot of people will not talk about today, that these two guys were on the same coaching staff, it's clear that they have a good relationship, because Kirby Smart could have just stood up and be like, hey, buddy, let me know when you win a national championship ring as a head coach, and then when you win another one, then let me know. When you're on my level, then you talk to me, little fella.
No, that's a good point. And I think, too, like that's also one where I understand. I appreciate him having fun and taking jabs and everything. But that's also something Kirby's going to remember. And if Miami gets lined up across you the playoff, they're going to beat the absolute dog shit out of you because of that. I think so.
The only thing that I will say about that, if it's coming off a bye for Georgia in the playoffs,
yes.
Not so fast, my friends. Not so fast, because the last 2 years Georgia's been coming off the bye, and they've lost both of those games. And they got lost to Notre Dame, and then this past year they lose that great game up against Ole Miss. Now, I'm gonna go against a rule of thumb of mine. I am not supposed to usually end the show on a controversial note.
Oh, I see here.
But the president of the United States, Donald Trump, was talking to to 1980. He was talking to the 2026 USA men's gold medal winning hockey team, the first gold medal that the USA has won in hockey since the 1980 team did it. And there was a line thrown in there about inviting the men's team and the women's team to the State of the Union tonight. And it has caused a lot of chatter on the internet. This is what happened.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, we'll do it at the White House anytime. What would really be cool, and we'll do the White House the next day, we'll just have some fun. We have medals for you guys. And we have to, I must tell you, we're going to have to bring the women's team. You do know that. Absolutely. Probably would be impeached, okay? But anyway, if you could work that out, I would be honored to have you. I'll introduce you to the whole...
I got it, boss. I got it.
So here is what I will say with this. A lot of people today are losing their minds, and I get it. The president of the United States, 50% of the people love him, 50% of the people hate him. I have no issue with the president of the United States calling to talk to the team afterwards. I would say the same if it was Barack Obama, if it was Joe Biden, if it was George W. Bush, whoever the president has been in my lifetime. The commentary off of that, and like people are upset with the USA men's hockey team because the president made a joke about the women's hockey team. Like, oh, I have to invite them to the State of the Union. The women aren't, going anyway. They declined the invitation, I think because of scheduling commitment or something like that, whatever they said. But the idea that, like, people are saying, oh, the men shouldn't have been laughing. The men should have told them, to hang up the phone. It's the president of the United States. These guys that just won gold are trying to party. They're trying to drink. They're trying to get drunk. They're trying to celebrate their championship. And you heard people in the background say, oh, 2 for 2. That means the men's and the women both won. So I understand when it gets to politics, it's, oh, you're a Republican, you live and die by the sword. Oh, you're a Democrat, you live and die by the sword. I'm down the middle. That's how I've been. I'm registered as an independent. I listen, and then I vote on who I think is the best person to lead the country. But have we lost, like, the ability just to break things down because of the hatred of one person? If you hate the president, you hate the president. If you love the president, you love the president. That's your right as an American. But the idea that people the last 24 hours, 48 hours are like, we need to cancel the men's hockey team. Shame on the men's hockey team. Like, what else are they supposed to do in that spot? The president's on the phone. Kash Patel's there. They put the president on the phone. He makes a joke. What are they just not laugh, not do anything? Like, they don't do anything, then they would get criticized. If they do something, they get criticized. Like, I just don't understand why people are crushing the hockey team today. You don't like the president, you don't like the president. The hockey team did nothing wrong. And that's all on the show today. Fun one today. Big thanks to Sam Brookhouse for joining us. Big thanks to Will Bowling for stopping by as well. Appreciate Andrew Valade and also Garrett Ross for putting this extravaganza tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern as the Zach Gelb Show is live Monday through Fridays right here on 365 Sports from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time. You can always give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, also on TikTok at The Zach Gelb Show. And remember, folks, youtube.com/@365SportsYT, youtube.com/@365SportsYT. Subscribe. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Zach Gelb Show. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.